Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Well, the term city revitalization doesn't quite say it. It's more than that. It's a larger and broader expansion going on now in the Carolinas urban core. Towns like Raleigh and Charleston, Greenville, South Carolina for sure, Charlotte, Asheville. In fact, Durham's reanimation is one of the best examples. And for that matter, enter RTP as they intentionally lay out plans for a renewal. And of course, honorable mentions to Columbia and Greensboro as well. Welcome again to the most widely watched source for Carolina business and public policy. I'm Chris William. And this renewal in city centers are not just upgrades, but the next substantial step up in development with far-reaching implications for these anchor cities. In a moment, we'll begin with four experts from the metros that are squarely in the center of this renaissance in urban redevelopment.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded April 11th, 2014. On this week's program, Matthew Coppedge of Downtown Durham, Inc., Pat Danahy of the Greensboro Partnership, Ben Haskew of the Greenville Chamber of Commerce, and Matt Kennell from City Center Partnership, Inc. Now, here's Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program, City Center Revitalization and Urban Core and all of those things. Guys, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Nice to see you all back. Matthew, welcome. This could be just really uncomfortable for you, so we'll try to make it a little
Let's hope not.
And you know, I'll start with you, Matthew. This is just strictly my opinion, but it seems like Durham, when we talk about urban core revitalization and redevelopment, it seems like Durham is the most stark example of that in the Carolinas. Not that Greenville or Columbia or Greensboro or Charlotte or any haven't done it, but it seems like that Durham has done it in a fairly short period of time, and it's been pretty dramatic. Is that overstating it?
I think that's pretty accurate. I think we, got a late start, I think. Generally, when you look at downtown organizations who do redevelopment, we started in 1994. So a lot of people have been doing it for 30 years before that. So we kind of got a late start. I like to tell people that nobody really cared about downtown Durham to tear down our old warehouses in the 80s. Nobody wanted to spend that money to do that. So we luckily have all these great warehouses. And it really took the vision of an organization like ours to actually begin to push that in the mid-90s. I was at UNC at that time in the mid-90s. We would come to downtown Durham for Bulls games, and then we would leave because there was nothing to do. It was a relative ghost town. I mean, that's really what you were looking at.
Well, and also, I would argue that it was unsafe in a lot of ways.
Well, it's funny. People think that. I think before that it may have been unsafe, but at that point there was nobody there. There was nobody there to do anything unsavory because there was just nobody there to get anything from. There was nobody there to do anything. So there was just really nothing going on. You had 50% occupancy rates. I did a symposium last week at UNC, and I was showing some pictures of downtown in the 80s and 90s, and all the windows and doors along Main Street were boarded up. And that's what you had in the 80s and 90s. And the first president of DDI, Bill Kalkoff, in the 90s, who took the job, was like, I can't do any worse. And that's one of the reasons
DDI
he
is
took
Durham
it. Sorry, Downtown Durham Incorporated. Okay. So we're the organization that does downtown revitalization.
So what is this that you have to get right when you start this process? Anyone?
I think in the case of Greenville, which started 30 years ago,
Right.
it started with a good master plan, and it started with a partnership between the business community and the city. There's not an organization like yours in Greenville. It's really the city and their staff and their leadership that's kind of had the vision. We've had a mayor for 17 years that's continued that vision of redevelopment, of bringing green spaces, so a good partnership all along the way. But it started with good planning.
Yeah.
In our case, the city really started in the mid-90s, about the same time as Durham, I think. And it was reclaiming blighted areas. We had 3 or 4 housing projects, a couple of upscale housing projects that worked extremely well.
Pat, is this a planning commission? Is this city council? Is this the mayor's office? I mean, where did it find life?
I think the genesis there was the city manager and the mayors over that period of time, and the city council willing to invest in it. There was one $20 million project that the 10 acres that was involved was generating $400,000 a year in taxes before, and after it now generates on an annual basis $10 million. So it was that type of thing. And then ours evolved as really we've had to work with the transformation as far as our economy is concerned, in addition to the downtown. So we've had sort of a double thing. And after a McKinsey study that was sponsored by 3 foundations about the year 2000, there was a plan laid out by 7 foundations, and we're very fortunate to have had them to get together and work together, and that's really where the initiative came for the a stage of renovations downtown that included the baseball park that we were talking about earlier.
Right.
The Center City Park, and as soon as Center City Park got built, there was a $40 million high-end luxury condominium complex right across the street from it.
Some of this dialogue, it's going through my head, and as I was thinking about planning for the program, and Matt, you're kind of, Columbia's right on the edge of some pretty exciting stuff. I'll give you a chance to talk about it. But this almost seems like back to the future. You know, how it used to be kind of cool to be downtown and do all that.
Absolutely.
And then we all blew up and went out to, the sprawl and the planning.
What we're finding out now, Chris, it is the future. It's people, we don't have to sell, I think all of us could say this in our downtowns, we don't have to sell people coming downtown. They are coming. They are coming in large numbers. As the population ages, older people want to live downtown. It's convenient. It's close to healthcare. They can walk everywhere. Young people absolutely want to be downtown. It's a great job generator for the community. And it's really now building on that and continuing to do things right, dealing with open space, recreation. We've talked a lot about baseball, all the things that people want today. So it's, for 10 years ago, I think it was trying to make people remember the good old days and bring that back. And today, I think downtown sort of are the future.
And what we've tried to do is create this environment, right? You want to create that environment where people they can walk to a ball game within 5 minutes of most places you can live in downtown Durham. You can walk to the ballpark and see the Bulls play. You can walk across the street and watch a Broadway show that's coming just went on tour from New York. So you can do those things and walk to 100 restaurants within 10 minutes of where you are. So people really, really do want that environment.
Those anchors are critical. I mean, the way our downtown has come together is. We had a major hotel as an anchor on one end of Main Street. We had a performing arts center, the Peace Center, down about 8 or 10 blocks. And then the infill started occurring in between. Then the ballpark came, and we've seen from the river to the ballpark a tremendous infill. And it's all mixed use. It's residential now, it's apartments, condominiums, but it's the restaurants, the entertainment outlets. And so you've got to have an 18 or 20 hour a day activity center. And our downtown has become a destination for that.
Yeah, it seems like an octopus, though, and I say that in a way where you've got so many subtle levers to pull. Certainly a ball field plays a big role. And Pat, I know this is a little far afield, but not so far from where you are. And that's this whole idea that the triangle now has gone through this renaissance, that Fayetteville Street has opened up downtown in Raleigh, that RTP is now laying out a vision to refresh what Bob Ingram calls their tired brand, and certainly Durham has done it. I mean, all of these things are going on there now. I guess what I'm still trying to understand is it policy, or is it, hey, by the way, Columbia just got the approval to build a ballpark, that's going to do it? I mean, really, what is it? What does it come down to?
I think we're all visiting one another and sharing and seeing what works, and then behind that comes the policy and the activity level that's necessary from a financing point of view to make these things happen. The Performing Arts Center in Durham is a great example. We have now a $65 million Performing Arts Center that's going to be built in about 2 years. That'll be on one end of town. The middle of town, there's an upscale hotel that's going to be put there. The Wyndham folks, that's the sponsors for the golf tournament in our community. But that'll be in the center of town. And then on the lower part of town is the Union Square campus, which is a consortium of colleges and universities that we put together that will put a facility to train nurses with a world-class sim lab. And then that campus we expect to grow. So you've got barbells on either side of town, things that in 3 years, the face of Greensboro will be very different than it is today.
How do you make sure in Columbia, and this is going to be the same question for you, Matthew, up in Durham, how do you make sure in Columbia that Columbia doesn't turn into USCville or Durham doesn't turn into Dukeville? And you're rolling your eyes because you know that's a real challenge.
Sure.
Well, I think you have to look at that. I think in our case, it's partnering with the university, deciding how the city's plans link up to the university's plans. In Columbia, for example, the university has decided to move toward the river and make that its emphasis. And we are supportive of that, and we're also trying to connect very strategically how the university connects to downtown without necessarily morphing and becoming Gamecockville.
Right.
But we are working together. We are seeing now student housing coming into the city center in a big way. And we're actually backing up a little bit and looking at our plans and making sure that all works, making sure that that it's a positive for everybody. We think it will be, but we want to make sure we're doing it right.
Hold on, one just a second.
Yeah, so Duke has obviously been, I'm a Carolina guy, so it's hard for me to say this, but Duke has been a great partner in downtown revitalization. I mean, they were
Is that really hard?
It does. It's really tough. So, they were the anchor tenant in a lot of these projects to help get them financed. So American Tobacco, West Village, it doesn't matter, all the developments that happen downtown. So they lease now, it just was released 2 days ago, 1 million square feet in downtown Durham. So they didn't buy anything, they didn't develop anything, but they became that anchor tenant. They have, I think, over 3,000 employees in downtown now. So it's really, it's good to have them in downtown. They helped the Performing Arts Center get built. They filled a gap there. So they've been a great partner in what we've been able to do in downtown. I think, actually, they only put their name on one building so far. Before it was like they didn't want it to turn into Dukeville. Now I think we've built a brand in downtown where we're not as fearful of that, just in general, to have it turn into that. I think now it's a great partnership between everybody. Downtown Durham has a reputation, and that's a good reputation and a good brand now, where now both of those could coexist with Duke being a partner.
And you were talking about Union Square. Did I interrupt you on that?
No. We actually have the opposite. We've got 42,000 college students within our, you wouldn't know that, you wouldn't think that. I mean, it is a college. So we're trying to bring the college and university students into the town, and the college and universities be more a part of it. So it's almost the opposite.
And in our community, we don't have a major public university. Clemson's the closest, 30 miles away.
But
So
USC Upstate has a
USC Upstate has a presence. But we've, working with Clemson, we moved their MBA program to downtown Greenville. It's on Main Street in a brand new twin 9-story office complex. CU ICAR, which is in the urban area, suburban area. So we're interested in those students being a part of that downtown fabric. And the more the merrier if we can recruit more parts of Clemson. Furman University, which is 8 miles north of downtown, is doing more in the downtown area. So we'd like to see that.
And I would say that the 20 to 40 demographic is the one that's driving this. And we want college students to come there, experience our community, and stay there.
Exactly. That's a challenge for us, too. When you have a large university like the University of South Carolina, you want those graduates to stay in town. So by engaging them into the city center and all the things that are happening there, for example, we have a big film festival this weekend in Columbia, which has heavy involvement from the university. That keeps those people engaged, and hopefully when they graduate, they'll make Columbia a destination of choice.
Will that film festival have a meaningful impact on your weekend revenues?
Absolutely, yeah. It'll fill up our restaurants. It will. It's in multiple venues throughout the community, and it has a very large impact on what happens in the city.
Yeah. Was somebody over here going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the reason RTP was formed, 50 years ago was the brain drain. People were leaving to go to New York and DC or whatever, and they weren't staying in the Triangle. So we need to create jobs to keep that talent in Durham. So we did the same thing. We're doing that in downtown right now with the startup community. We're really building this great American Underground, which is a place for a startup incubator kind of area. We have 130 startups in downtown right now. A number have had successful exits, and Google is now we're one of Google's 7 tech hubs in the country. So we're doing this to keep these students who are graduating in downtown and give them opportunities to have jobs and to actually grow companies in downtown. So I think it's key to keep those students around in our community. And see, luckily we have not only we have NCCU in Durham, we have NC State, Carolina, all in the Triangle area within a 20-minute drive of where we are. So those students are also finding opportunities in downtown Durham. So
I think one of the connections here is sense of place. So important now in economic development and to this talent that we're talking about is there's got to be a cool place that especially that young creative class wants to be a part of. And what we think our community, our downtown has become is a destination for a lot of that. Just like you, we've got about 130 of these high impact startups in the community. And for them, having that downtown with all of those amenities is a way they attract talent.
So, Ben, to stay on that, when you try to make something cool, then that's not cool. It's just not going to work. So how do you get sense of place? How do you get that Asheville factor? I mean, Asheville, somebody once said if you're too weird, and this is a bumper sticker, if you're too weird to be in Asheville, then you're just too weird. I love that. We all laugh at that. But I mean, how do you get that edginess and bring it into town?
One of the ways we did it was we just had focus groups with that age group, and we did them over and over again. And so, what do you like?
What came out of that?
And the green spaces, the trails, biking, hiking,
outdoor recreation.
How do you tie all that together? They like that. Yes, they want to go to bars and restaurants and that sort of thing, but they want that outdoor factor and they want that connectivity, and so that's an attractive feature. And what grew out of that was our young professionals group in the chamber. Now 1,000 young people, and so they're doing the arts and they're doing sports and they're engaged, and so it's really neat, and they're helping attract others.
Chris, you asked about policies, and one of the things that I think the city has done in our community and continues to do is look for ways to make it easier. Things like sidewalk dining, making sure that it's easy to do that. It's because people like to sit outside and they like to drink beer when they're sitting outside. To make sure that can happen. Bike racks. Any kind of amenity you can think of, making it easier to close city streets for events, letting people put chalk on the streets if it's an art event. I mean, it all sounds silly, but I think sometimes to adapt to the culture that you have and make downtown a little less buttoned down, I think is good for the new economy. And also, what we're finding is the older folks like coming down and mingling with the younger folks. So it's a win-win. Watching. Yeah, it's a win-win.
Like
for
it used to be
everybody.
at the mall. You'd go to the mall and mall watch, but now it's
one of the cool
we have
things
the same things. I mean, and I think a key to it is to get your young folks together. A Synergy is the organization that we've had now with the foundations for about 10 years now. But listen to them, let them have a voice, and then do what they say. Even though, from our point of view, it probably would not be what we would do, and it's like, this isn't going to work, but it usually does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think make it it easy for businesses to open. I mean, it is. It's a
Are you
simple
talking about
thing.
streamlining permitting process?
All of it, anything. I mean, anything. Just make it simpler. Don't. If somebody moves into a downtown building, if they want to open a restaurant, and it takes them a year to upfit the space, and it's not ready, and it's hard to get through that, they could move into a mall in 2 months. You don't put hurdles in the way to make sure that obviously you have to follow the laws and the rules, but you have to make it easier for them. And we've tried to do that as an organization since we're outside of city government, which is good for us because then we can speak up against regulations that are ridiculous. We can do that and work with the city to actually fix them and make it easier for people. The other thing that's cool about Durham is that we're actually building Durham for the next 100 years, and people actually feel like they can get engaged in that, and that has really helped to drive what we're kind of doing, because it was kind of a blank slate, right? Because there was nothing here in the 80s and 90s, generally speaking. So people really feel like they can be a part of what we're becoming, as opposed to kind of being a top-down approach. We put the environment in place to make it easier to do business, to bring in the DPAC and the Bulls or whatever it is. But then we kind of let the market kind of dictate what different areas of downtown are going to be. And if people can get cheaper rents, they'll move to one area, and that becomes this cool grassroots type area with some bars and music clubs and venues and those type of things. So we've really let it drive. The people are what drive everything.
Is
People
there-
want to be around other people that are fun and successful.
Sorry, Matthew, to
No,
interrupt you.
sure.
Is there, as you kind of let open up the doors and let the young people get their way, or let the millennials do their thing, and everyone's at the table, how do you control this nuclear reaction, if you will, to make sure that it doesn't morph into something that could not be good overall? And Ben, how I'm saying that, Peace Center is a great example. What a wonderful family. What a wonderful place to have the arts. How do you make sure, and not to say that Peace Family is like this, but how do you make sure that one visionary, in the case of Durham, it's Jim Goodman with the Bulls, how do you make sure that they don't have an over amount of influence that is self-serving, that certainly would help them, but how do you, I guess the question is any constituent, city council, an individual donor, Greenville hospital system, the city or the state capital, how do you make sure that doesn't get out of control?
Gosh, it's a great question. I think we've been fortunate because there's been a lot of collaboration around development opportunities, and I think it's really about everybody's kind of doing their piece of the puzzle, but they're all complementary. I don't quite know how to really.
So you don't
answer
feel
the
like you
question.
have to be a traffic cop?
No,
with that
not
kind of
really,
thing? Okay.
not really.
I think the cities that are successful are the ones that do that well.
I would agree.
How your different parts of your community work together is important in terms of how fast you move down.
And I would say that's been the biggest change in Columbia. Our revitalization was sort of slow going, and it's really gained a lot of traction in the last 5 or 6 years. And I think the big reason for that is collaboration. I mean, the university and the city, the downtown property owner organization, which is the one that I run, and even the neighborhoods in Columbia. There's always downtown revitalization versus the neighborhoods. But what we're seeing now is the neighborhoods want downtown revitalization. They're starting to see the connection to how it improves their quality of life and makes the community more attractive. So you kind of have to bring all those people to the table and, like you said, listen to everybody and do what they say. And that makes a big difference. So the collaboration and connectivity, as you said, I think are really the two things that I see that are driving the success that we're having today.
Go ahead, Ben.
The younger generation is far more creative than the last 3 or 4 generations that came before them. And that they have their own ideas about things, and they're really very good. It's just more different than anything we've seen, I think, in 100 years. And responding to that, when you get it right, then it works. It works extraordinarily well.
And there's only so much control you want to have, right? I mean,
Right,
you kind of
sure.
want that
Yeah.
that growth to happen. So I think you put the things in place that you get the pros in to do, like the ballpark and the theater, and then you make the environment that people want to be in, because most people want to be in this 24/7 environment where they can live, work, play, do all that stuff. But you don't want to have too much control, because then you kind of squash that creative vibe that you're kind of shooting for. So obviously, again, you have to have rules and laws and that type of stuff. But we've kind of let it flow, and then we've plugged in where we want to plug in, or where we feel we can help. As opposed to like startups, they're like, get regulations out of our way. Let us do what we want to do. We don't need incentives. We don't need those type of things. Just do some things that can help market Durham as a startup hub. And that's what we've done with our Startup Stampede and the Smoffice, which won a global award last year, the world's smallest office space we gave away. That was between us and the chamber. We came up with
what did that look like? How small was the world's smallest?
About 20 square feet, so it was about as big as this table.
And what went in there? What kind of business went in there?
It was called the Makery. So they, it was like a fab.com for local artists is what it was. We had a national competition. It was in the front window of our startup kind of coffee shop. So it was these creative things. We competed with countries. The Country Chamber of Commerce is in Doha, over in Qatar. And we competed with people who were spending $30 million on these projects. And we won the world's most unconventional chamber project, and we spent like 20 grand on it. So you can be creative to support what's going on.
And we got about a minute left. And Ben, I want to, since Greenville's been doing this for a while, how do you make sure you don't get complacent? We have less than a minute. How do you make sure that doesn't happen?
I think in our case, it's a constant dialogue in public and private sector, and thankfully the chamber is involved and engaged. But I give a lot of credit to, especially in this case, in this topic, with our city's leadership, longtime city council, mayor, but also the economic development staff in the city really have been in place a long time, and they all we all work together.
Yeah,
you know?
thank you. That'll be the last word. Matthew, good to have you on the program.
thank
Come
you.
back sometime. Ben, nice to see you again. Good to see you.
Always.
Good luck with all the changes going on in Columbia. It's very exciting, Matt.
Thanks.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thanks, Pat. Nice to have you back as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Until next week, I'm Chris William. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions, carolinabusinessreview.org. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.